Well, Mary, the sisters are facing decades in prison, each charged with 25 counts, including mail fraud and conspiracy to commit mail fraud. Each of those counts carries a maximum penalty of up to 20 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. Our cameras captured some of the defendants leaving court today. Investigators say the sisters would make online purchases shipped to them through FedEx, then request a return. They would then pretend to return the items using self-service kiosks at the post office to scan the return label, which would then get the refund issued, but then not actually return the merchandise. Then they would go ahead and turn around and return the merchandise in person at a brick and mortar store, getting a second fraudulent return.
They would then take the physical items that had been delivered to their homes and they would travel to different states across the country. We know they went to California, Colorado, Arizona, Florida, Michigan, all over the country to return those in person.
In a search warrant, sir, federal agents seized from the sisters about $500,000 in cash, about $500,000 worth of gold jewelry, 5 Teslas, and over $100,000 in merchandise from the victim retailer, which is not named in court documents, but we're told all of the items are activewear from the same retailer. Now, 4 of the 5 sisters appeared in federal court today, pleading not guilty to the charges. They were released home on the promise that they would return to future court dates and they must surrender their passports. Reporting live in Seattle, Leanne Wynn.
5 sisters now face federal charges for alleged mail fraud. Investigators say they made more than $1 million in fraudulent returns. And I talked to reporter Leanne Wynn about the latest details surrounding this case. All right, Leanne Wynn, thank you for joining us to talk about this story that you've been working on today. And, you know, these are some really serious charges against these 5 sisters, more than $1 million stolen. What's kind of the backstory here?
Well, the federal government is alleging that they had quite an elaborate mail fraud scheme going on. So what they're saying that these 5 sisters allegedly did was that they would make online purchases through an online retailer. It was over $1 million worth of activewear over a period of about 2 years. They've been doing this apparently since March of 2022. So what they would do was make the purchase online, then start a return. And so then when they got the shipping label back for that return, they would go to a self-serve kiosk at a U.S. Postal Service, scan the return label, but not actually return the merchandise. So once they scan that return label, they would automatically get the money for the return, but they wouldn't actually return the merchandise. Then they would go to a brick and mortar store and return the merchandise in person and then get a second return for that same purchase. So what the federal government is alleging is that they did this, defrauded this online retailer for more than $1 million worth of merchandise. Again, over the course of 2 years.
So we're talking about a lot of money and we're talking about some pretty extravagant moves that they did to carry this out. I understand a search warrant was served. What was found with that?
Right. So they served a search warrant last week on multiple different locations, and they were able to seize about $500,000 in cash, about $500,000 in gold jewelry, as well as 5 different Tesla vehicles, and over $100,000 worth of merchandise from the victim retailer. Now, at this point, we don't know who that retailer is, but we do know that all of this was happening at the same store. And yeah, that was just the same one retailer. But the federal government was also telling us that these sisters would make flights to different states to make some of these returns. And that I would assume was just to try and avoid detection. So they were going to making flights to multiple different states and then doing multiple different returns in that state. And then they would come back home to Washington State.
What happened in court today?
So 4 of the 5 sisters had arraignment and detention hearings in federal court today. They all pleaded not guilty to all of the charges. And they were also released today. The 4 were released today. Granted, they have to give up their passports. They have certain release conditions that they have to abide by. But 4 of them were released today with the promise, to appear to their future court dates. And then the 5th one will have her arraignment and detention hearing tomorrow. But most of the hearings have been pretty much going the same way. So I would anticipate the same thing that happened today with the 4 sisters happening with the 5th tomorrow.
Certainly something we're going to continue to follow. Leanne, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks.